this time we're taking a look at the Collect and Connect figure from Series 19 of the DC Universe Classics. This is, of course, S.T.R.I.P.E, or Special Tactics Robotic Integrated Power Enhancer. S.T.R.I.P.E is mostly made up of parts from S.T.R.I.P.E, the Collect and Connect figure from the second wave of the Green Lantern classic. So let's kind of do a side-by-side, if we could, by bringing out S.T.R.I.P.E here. You can see here that for the most part it's the same legs here, a little bit different. They've filled in the pieces in here a little bit more. You can see they've added a little bit of armor here and on the side here. They've also done stuff to the bottom of the feet here by adding these unique tread pieces here. And if you take a look at the bottom, they've done more detail. Butt piece here is the same, and they've pretty much remolded the top chest piece here and the shoulder pieces here to be unique, as well as they've kept the upper arms the same, but the lower arms they've remolded and added these armor pieces, and they've given him bigger fists or hands here. And while the heads are pretty much the same design, they've added this unique sort of jaw on here, and they've done this sort of detailing to the top to really make him stand out as different. The paint is really nice. It's this pearlescent white, and it really gives that shiny effect. It's also got, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got some silvery blue highlights in here to bring the detailing out a little bit. And it's a nice touch. It's very subtle, and that's all over the figure. Now, for articulation, he is a little bit... S.T.R.I.P.E was only pretty limited in the shoulders because of the pads here, while S.T.R.I.P.E here is a lot more limited. Because of the sculpt here in the front, he's got no ab articulation forward, just slightly back. That's a step down from the S.T.R.I.P.E. You can see here, he's very well articulated there. The arms are pretty much the same as S.T.R.I.P.E. They go this far forward and this far back before running into troubles with the pads up here. They can go out this far, and he does rotate at the bicep. He does bend at the elbow. His wrists rotate and bend in and out slightly as the big, huge forearms allow. And we saw the waist articulation. His head articulation is pretty good. You got forward and back, left and right. Even though you have this high collar, it really doesn't impede his head. His legs are very loose on mine. They do go forward and back, but you can see that the weight just brings them right down. He does not seem to be able to swivel at the legs like S.T.R.I.P.E does. I don't know if that's just my figure or they decided to not have that articulation for Stripe. But he does bend at the knee. He does rotate at the lower portion of the leg. And ankles bend forward and back. There's a slight side to side here. Not much though. Overall, he's okay. I mean, it's great to have a stripe. I would never have thought that we would see a Stripe figure anywhere. You know, I was amazed when they did a Justice League version of him, let alone to get a second version of him in the DC Universe Classics. A couple of things I might have liked is maybe a replacement head that was just plain Pat Dugan's head. So, like, he had taken the helmet off and you could see Pat Dugan underneath there. Because this is not a robot, but a suit that he wears, like Iron Man. It would have been nice to have that little touch. I was also going to say that, you know, this design is cool and all, but you know, it really doesn't match any of the Stripe armors that we've seen in the comics. Just a little nitpick. So it's not strictly looking like the exact comic book version of Stripe. I guess give a little history on Pat Dugan or Stripe-E. So, Pat Dugan happened to be attending a movie at the same time that Sylvester Pemberton was. And this movie theater was for some reason they had some protesters that caused some sort of riot or something, and both he and Sylvester Pemberton, who at that time was a young teenager, fought these guys and revealed that they were involved in some sort of plot, and they initially did not like each other, and coming from like two different worlds basically. Pat Dugan was pretty much a, you know, working man Irish immigrant type story, and Sylvester Pemberton was a rich trust fund kid, and you know, they begrudgingly, as they went through this adventure of smashing this Nazi spy ring, they begrudgingly conceded that they were really effective together, and they agreed to be partners, and they modeled their mystery men identities on the U.S. flag. Of course, taking the name the Star-Spangled Kid and Stripe-E. The Star-Spangled Kid was so commanding and sure of himself, and just brought out, radiated that sort of, I guess, charisma that quickly Dugan was kind of relegated to being his sidekick. Even though he was pretty smart and a damn good mechanic and engineer. And so they eventually joined forces with some other Golden Age heroes to create one of my favorite teams, the Seven Soldiers of Victory. Eventually they were brought into the All-Star Squadron as well. However, after the war, they were trapped in time by the Nebula Man until they were freed when the Justice League of America and Justice Society of America teamed up to defeat the Nebula Man and find the Seven Soldiers of Victory, who were scattered throughout time. Soon after returning to not his present, but what would be the Justice League's present, which was why he was much younger than he should be, because he really skipped the years from after the war to whenever the Justice League got him out of ancient Egypt. So while just a few years passed for him, it was really decades. And so he went about building a new life, and he got married and had a son, Michael. But eventually his wife left him and his son, so he became a single parent. Also during this time, there was a lot of bad blood between him and Sylvester Pemberton, because Arthur Pemberton, who had inherited the Pemberton fortune, had been stealing the patents that Dugan had created during the war and was not allowing him to get them back. And eventually that was all sorted out, and he remarried and became the stepfather to Courtney Whitmore. They moved to Blue Valley, where he had figured out there was something sinister going on and was going to try and find out what was going on with his new robotic suit of S.T.R.I.P.E. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, Courtney found some of Sylvester Pemberton's and his old stuff, connecting him to the heroes known as the Star-Spangled Kid and Stripe-E, and decided to become the new Star-Spangled Kid, and thus went into action, quickly followed by Pat Dugan in the Stripe armor. So while initially their relationship was pretty rocky and they really kind of detested each other, they came to understand and respect each other through their adventures. And Courtney really found out how much Pat actually did care for her, and they've really become a great family, including not only his son from the previous marriage, Michael, but a new daughter, Patricia. Stargirl finds out that she would eventually become, in the distant future, well, not too distant, but pretty far away, she would become Star-Woman as well. Of course, he appears in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon alongside Stargirl. I think he has a couple of lines, but is mostly a cameo. Although he doesn't make an appearance on the Smallville Absolute Justice episode or any of the other episodes that Stargirl appears in, he is mentioned from time to time. So I guess that'll be it for S.T.R.I.P.E. And stay tuned for Wave 20 of the DC Universe Classics, the last of the DC Universe Classics line, before it changes into DC All-Stars. Stay tuned until then for other reviews, and until my next video, I'll see you.